and welcome to Live or Lent. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's episode of the program, we'll be discussing several issues that the labor sector is faced with, especially unemployment, the issues of pensioners, and also the construction sector. We will be right back.
The moment banks are having...
It was 2 hours of robust discussion by organized labor, employers of labor and government officials. Many issues were raised on how the tripartite group can cope with COVID-19 in the world of work.
As a labor movement, we intend to encourage all our affiliates going forward, particularly in Lagos State for us, to step forward and not be reactive. We need to be proactive. Where we have envisaged some challenges coming, we can actually step forward and initiate the engagement with the employers so that we can have that discussion, bearing in mind the existence of a collective bargaining agreement and other working agreements that could be there. And we also continue to reach out to employers to remember their social responsibility, very important at this time.
The 30,000 minimum wage, as at the time the negotiation was going on, was about CBN was 306, the black market was 360. Now what you have now is CBN is 360, the black market is 450. So the 30,000 naira that you have is far less than $80 when it was negotiated. So what you have is that the value of 30,000 naira is actually what you have in your pocket. Your take-home pay and what you can have when you go to the market is actually about 22,000 naira.
During the webinar meeting, the president of Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions, Oyinkansola Olasanye, spoke on the issue of possible job losses in the financial sector. She said financial institutions have received approval to shut down some branches across the country.
The moment banks are having approval from central bank that they should shut down branches, definitely there is going to be job loss. Although the direct approval that says shut down branches does not say that they should lay off staff, but definitely those staffs need to go somewhere. And most of the time they were always transferred outside or taken to some unknown terrains. And the conclusion of the matter is always that most staff in such branches will lose their job. So indirectly, despite that the government is saying we should try as much as possible to preserve jobs in this season, as long as there is permission from the central bank that banks should close down branches, that means directly there will be job loss in the sector.
Employers of labor and other stakeholders spoke about some challenges they face, especially the issue of taxation.
One of the things that certainly is happening now is reclassification of work. So if you were working where you must be physically present, and now the employer says, well, I really can't afford that now, and it's not necessary because I want to keep as many people out of the office as possible. You need to know how to use a laptop. You need to be able to know how to, to set up meetings, virtual meetings, and ensure that you're able to work for you to keep able to maintain work, maintain your employment. So training cannot be overemphasized. It is key.
If a business is standing on half leg, not even on one leg, a time will come when that business will take some very difficult decisions. And that difficult decisions will affect not only the employees, it will affect the business owners, and it will also affect the ability of government to generate tax from that business. And if employees are released in whatever form, it's also deprived government its ability to generate income as a payee of those employees. So it's a whole gamut of issues. And you cannot pick the chain reaction from the middle and say you want to deal with it. You deal with it either from the extreme. And the first extreme is, let's look at our regulatory environment. Is it conducive for businesses to operate?
The permanent secretary of the Lagos State Ministry of Establishment, Pensions and Training, who represented the commission, has said the state government will continue to provide more jobs.
For more employment, Lagos will still employ more because we know, apart from reducing the unemployment rate in the market, we are also fulfilling some social responsibilities and opening opportunities.
One of the worst fears of the COVID-19 pandemic is the unprecedented scale of job losses that could follow in the wake of economic uncertainty. But what then becomes of a worker who is dismissed by his employer after more than 20 years of service without benefit of any kind? Ganiu Olariwanju is an ex-employee of Chemlax DMK Limited, a firm owned by Indians and co-managed by Nigerians. During an extensive interview, he narrated how he and more than 130 workers were disengaged in one day. This, according to him, happened during the COVID-19 pandemic.
If you are asking people to go, the honorable thing for you to do is to calculate all their entitlements and ask them to go. And their entitlement should be less all indebtedness to them. But up to this moment, they are not saying anything. What they are maintaining is that they are not going to pay redundancy benefit to anybody, of which the union is still contesting with them. This problem, we have actually notified the Labour Ministry. But at the Labour Ministry, there are many channels to follow, there are many doors to knock, so the problem is still ongoing. But I just want the world to know, because the board chairman is saying that whatever decision that he has taken, nobody can change.
Before the pandemic, the National Bureau of Statistics reported that Nigeria's unemployment rate rose to 23.1 and underemployment rose to 16.6%, with over 20 million Nigerians unemployed. This figure has increased significantly with the impending job losses as a result of the public health crisis. As of today, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is leading the Economic Stability Committee, reported that about 39.4 million Nigerians may be without jobs by the end of 2020.
COVID-19 has presented us with an enormous economic challenge. And it comes at a time when our poverty levels have risen really phenomenally. If you, I'm sure that well, you're all quite familiar now with the MBS figures on poverty. We're told by the National Bureau of Statistics that over 40% of Nigerians earn less than 137,000 naira a year. A year, not a month, a year, over 40%. And you know, during the last recession, we lost almost 18 million jobs. Now this, from all indications, might be an even deeper recession if we don't take some very, very drastic steps. So not only are we faced with a major poverty problem, we're also faced with an economic slump. And a combination of this will give rise to, and my major concern is not just the deepening poverty, but also the possibility of serious social disturbance, you know. And at the moment, with the security challenges that we have, if we are not careful, we may find ourselves in a situation where any spark anywhere can become a national crisis. So that's the reason why I thought we should, with the economic sustainability plan, we should really focus on how to find jobs for the people.
Chris Ngige, Minister for Labour, Employment and Productivity, says employers are encouraged to retain their workers as palliative will be given to them.
Part of saving the jobs means also that we have to talk to employers, the organized private sector in particular, and make sure that the jobs in that sector are kept. We did that, and we assured those people of incentives. The central bank came out with the incentives, waiver of taxes, moratorium on loans, available funds for new loans at low interest rate, single digits, and some other incentives to keep the industry going.
For Ganiu Olanriwaju, he wants his April salary paid alongside his terminal benefit, as he and his other colleagues have served the company for more than 2 decades.
Our concern is, since the contract is no longer valid, they should make it a clean split and actually give us our entitlement.
With little to hope for in the job market, Ghanaian and more than 39 million persons who might lose their jobs will need a stimulated economy, which will in turn promote healthy employment after COVID-19. On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the National Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Amaechi Asuguni. He will be telling us more about how the government, the employers of labour, and labour itself can provide solution to the issues that the Labour Congress is faced with. Joining me via Skype is Comrade Amaechi Asuguni. Good to have you on the program.
You're welcome, Ms. Sharon.
A lot is happening in the labour sector, and one top issue across the world is the issue of unemployment. As the Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, what do you think can be done to ensure that the youth, most especially, don't suffer much from this issue that the world is faced with?
As a matter of fact, the issue of unemployment today is a crisis as far as we are concerned, and it requires attention. As a matter of fact, some employers have hidden under the guise of COVID-19 to massively reduce their workforce. It's unbearable because we are talking about citizens of this country. We are talking about the already faced insecurity challenge that we have. Then when more people are thrown out, that imposes danger to the economy. And I must tell you, it's a challenge that we all must stand to solve, especially from the arm of government, because the primary objective is to actually protect life and property, and that includes protection of employment having given, because if we're waiting for more employment to be given, such promises have lasted without implementation in Nigeria. So the few that are already working should not suffer unwarranted sack, because there could be a way to work around it, especially at the time whereby COVID-19 has stalled production. COVID-19 has also affected some ongoing projects, especially infrastructure-wise. But I think government should be wise in providing solutions to curtail COVID-19. They should also ensure activities that will also keep the economy alive. Otherwise, it will be a total quench, which will be unacceptable and disaster for all.
Would you say that the government is alive to its responsibility in terms of the issue of policy making that will favor several sectors, probably especially your sector, which is the construction sector?
One would say that the issue of policy making that will stand the test of time for our economic development is not yet out. You can't have a policy that is not having the overall framework of infrastructure as a nation. And where that is lacking, you see people cutting and nailing. Development is not being followed according to program. No Nigerian knows where our development will be in 10 years' time. Even the short-term and long-term program that should at least give ordinary Nigeria the knowledge of where we intend to take this country to in terms of infrastructure, because until you get it right, the infrastructure is the foundation for everything at all that we must achieve to enhance our economy. Without infrastructure, nothing will stand. And as such, if we don't pay due attention to it, we will keep getting it wrong. The government have not done a reliable policy that is made public for people to actually know where we're going and hold them accountable when they deviate. So that is a problem, because as I speak with you, we don't have a structural framework for Nigeria development. And if they have, it's not known to Nigerians. And no government, none of the administration has implemented it. You see them go off and on the key each time they talk about infrastructure development. A government will come and promise certain things, another government will come and cancel some of those things and then create their own. as if it's the party line that is developing Nigeria. Nigeria should develop itself by its own agenda. So I think they should make a law, there should be a policy standing for Nigeria, irrespective of party manifesto. They should work according to Nigeria manifesto, how we want Nigeria to look like. That is the policy we are looking at, not a policy informed by opinion of a party, and then another party will counter it by purpose of wanting to score majority support. That is not helping Nigeria. That is why we are going up and on.
Of course, Nigeria is faced with the issue of infrastructural problem, and of course, it's evident during this COVID-19 pandemic. But moving on, looking at the issue of pensioners' plight in the country, many pensioners have been complaining that they are yet to receive their pension, especially in Abia State. Most people have not even received their gratuity. At a point like this, whereby the economy funds are actually dwindling, or it has actually dwindled, looking at the fact that even those that they depend on probably may not earn any living anymore, probably till when the pandemic actually is over. What would be your message to relevant stakeholders in ensuring that pensioners, the older ones that have spent so many years in service, most of them probably uprightly, they served the country, but right now they are suffering. What's your take on this?
I think the message I have for government especially, and any organization that holds gratuity that belongs to workers, but most especially is the pensioners. When we talk about entitlements such as wage or pension, it's a further help to government. Because when these monies are paid, it's not limited to the hand of the earner. So when even the pensioners, they extend this very little in their hand to their neighbor, to their families. So when you withhold or deny pensioners their pay, and we are fighting COVID-19 that is actually targeted to kill lives, it means also that you are exposing the pensioners and making them vulnerable. And as such, the death rate will increase naturally even without COVID-19. If we truly desire to attribute value to life, we should also know that young people don't take pension. Pension goes to the old. And when you are old, the strength value is less, meaning little things can actually torture the head of an old person. Pension is statutory, and as such is the entitlement. Having put in your best to the service of this nation, having contributed your quota to the economy of this country, when you are not longer at work, your pension should be seen as priority. When government fail to take salary and pension as priority, then they have lost the actually expected value that the worker should be given. Because the dignity, we say, of labor is about how you care for them. It's not how much money now, but how regular are you paying them. The pension should serve its purpose. Otherwise, it lost its value on arrival. And we are calling on government to ensure that payment of pension is considered as priority, even at a time like this. Every salary earner is meant to help government extend this palliative to the vulnerable. Therefore, we cannot make those that are already earning little thing to be vulnerable. That, I think, will be disaster to the economy.
How would you say that the construction sector has fared during this COVID-19 period? Do you have lots of your members calling you that they've lost their jobs?
Honestly, in construction sector, as we speak, employers are considering the options of mass sack, and a lot of them have even begun. And that is a challenge, because we also call on government. We have released a letter to Mr. President through the Nigeria Labour Congress to actually see to it that we get attention, such as a bailout for infrastructure, because whereby we want to keep jobs, then we must pay for the work done and release money for the already awarded project. This will also assist the employers to retain the employees. Otherwise, it may be counterproductive when employers give express reason that for the fact they don't have money, they cannot keep workers.
So
and there is a law
what do you
out there
think?
that
What do you
supports
think the
the reduction of
presidency?
workforce.
What do you think the presidency can do to ensure that this mass sack doesn't happen?
One of the things presidency can do to ensure that the proposed mass sack is stopped is to give immediate directive to employers to halt every proposal of mass sacking. That, I think, will actually bring a solution to it, and thereafter call these people to meeting and then provide solution according to priorities within the sector in such a way that funds are released to enable this worker continue production in terms of infrastructure. This, I think, will sustain the economy for the betterment of Nigeria. Living it this way is going to impose danger because the more people will lose, the more threat to the economy.
And what will be the implications, apart from mass sack?
The implication beyond sacking, when people lost their job, you know insecurity will increase. And that on its own will also lessen government earning. Because don't forget, some of these salaries that are paid, workers in turn pay their tax to also help infrastructure. So whereby workers lose their job, they are not losing it to another Nigeria. They are losing it to nobody. And as such, employers eventually keep the rest as profit to themselves. And I want to believe the government should know the economic benefit of keeping workers. Globally, it is workers that circulate the socio-economic development that we talk about. It is workers that will make this money get to the ordinary people. Without the workers, the purchasing power will be low, and as such, the value of our nation's currency into nothing. And so we must keep the economy reviving by keeping these workers engaged in such a way that whatever that gets to their hand can also get to the hand of other small business owners who eventually supply the need of these workers.
Post-COVID-19, what will be your expectations generally from the government, employers of labor, and even labor itself to ensure that we have the working system working effectively?
Yes, the way this virus is going is becoming a norm that we should learn to work with. The only thing I want to commend Mr. President for not being in a hurry in opening the economy fully. I want to believe there is wisdom in all the steps taken so far. But the question is, rather than waiting to plan about post-COVID-19, I don't see this COVID-19 coming behind soon. And therefore, we should actually plan to work with this COVID-19. How do we achieve safety in the midst of this pandemic? So there should actually be policies, regulations, and guidelines that would tailor in achieving that our economy gets to working, even at a time like this, in the midst of this pandemic. What can we get going? So experts should guide in ensuring that wearing of nose masks and washing of our hands and respecting social distancing can get us on to the economy. When this is done, I advise Mr. President in particular to ensure that if not for many lessons, we should ensure that infrastructure is considered a priority. As a matter of fact, emergency on infrastructure is required. Because you can see, nobody, including the airlines, is traveling out of the country for medical attention. Everything is within Nigeria. And I bet you, some governors, some ministers, and senators, they have in one way or the other fallen ill this period. And they have been treated in Nigeria without traveling. That is to tell you that if it's better for Nigerians, it's also better for them. Let's make Nigeria strong. Let's put infrastructure that will survive our hope. Without power, it's difficult to have technical instruments to work for the medical sectors. And therefore, we need to put all these things side by side and ensure that lessons derived from this COVID-19 are put as emergency in order that everybody will respect protocols to achieving it.
Point taken, National Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember, Labour creates wealth.